Good Erev Shabbos. This is a Devar Torah on Parashat Vayeitzei. It is the Parsha where the story of the Chumash goes over and deals with Yaakov, and as well the next Parsha, before we get into the story of Yosef and the eventual descent of the Jewish people to Mitzrayim, Egypt. Now, at the beginning of the story, Yaakov leaves his town at the instruction of his parents. He has an encounter at Hamoraya. He has an encounter where he has a prophetic dream. And from that prophetic dream, I'll speak a little more about in next week's Parsha in connection with the battle between Yaakov and Esau's angel. In any event, he then meets Lavan, and he falls in love and wants to marry Rachel, and there is a switch. There is a switch, and the wedding night, Leah is taken by Lavan there. Rachel, not to embarrass her sister, gives the signals that Yaakov and Rachel had designed to stop such a trick by Lavan. The next day, he discovers it, and he marries Rachel, who he has to work for his second 7 years. And this time it describes the birth of 11 of the 12 tribes, 6 by Leah, 2 by Zebulun, Zilpah with maidservants, and 2 by Rachel. And then the 12th being Benjamin, the second son of Rachel, which will be in next week's Parsha. And it then goes on to, he wants to leave Lavan's house. Lavan says, stay, name your price. He changes the deal at Lavan numerous times. It's only through the great intervention of Hashem that he comes out gaining a lot materially. He then, with his wife's permission, Leah and Rachel, leave Lavan's house without telling him. They catch up on a mountain, and God tells him not to speak to Lavan, not speak to Yaakov, either good or bad, because even good from a Rasha, evil person like Lavan would be evil, would have negative consequences, as we saw when he blessed Rivka to have children, and it took her many, many years before she was able to conceive Yaakov and Esau. And the Parsha ends with Lavan and Yaakov making a covenant, and then as he enters Eretz Israel, he sees angels. He says this Machanaim is a holy place, and that's how the Parsha ends. Now, what I'd like to discuss today is Rachel and Leah. Now, Rachel and Leah are described in detail with the following pasuk, which is pasuk Tet Zayin, chapter, that's pasuk 16, in chapter 29, when it says Lavan Shtei Banot, Shem Hagadola Leah, and Shem Hakatana Rachel, and name Leah Lakut, and Rachel Nasa Yafa V'Toar V'Yafa Merah. And It means Lavan had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger one was Rachel. Leah's eyes were tender, while Rachel's was beautiful in form and beautiful appearance. And this is not only meant to be in physical terms, this is also talking in terms of what she represented. And Leah, there's many explanations of why she had soft eyes, one of which that she was crying because she thought she was going to have to marry Esav. Uh, and that was not actually the case, wasn't the case, or at least wasn't the whole story. And therefore she was crying and because she was weeping constantly when she prayed. Actually, there's more to it than that because she inherited certain spiritual qualities that came down to her from the time of Adam and Chava, and they were negative traits, and she had to really work on herself. When she did, she got to the level of being a tzedekah, righteous woman, and therefore no longer had to marry Esav. Now, very interesting, according to many opinions, just to give a little biographical background here, Rachel and Leah were twins, with Rachel having been conceived first and Leah having given birth to first, just like Yaakov was conceived first and Esav second, was conceived second. The other two, the two maidservants, were also, his father were all, Bilhah and Zilpah was also fathered by Lavan, but he was different wives than Rachel and Leah. And that is one level. Now I would like to go a little deeper and explain what they represent. And I'd first like to start with describing how they are described. And this is based, by the way, Vator is partially based on the Likutei Torah and also the works of the Arizal. And Leah represents the Yama, the Sakasa, Kasya, the hidden world, and Rachel represents the world of represents the world, the visible world. And she represents the Alma, the East Galaya, the real world. Now, there's some other things. There was sources that say that if Yaakov had fully understood who Leah was, he would have been in love with her, and he would not have married Rachel, at least not initially. But yet there was a deception by Lavan, which did not get the marriage off to the greatest of starts. Though he loved her, but it says he loved her, Leah, but less than Rachel. Now, what are these two worlds? Now, they represent the two roles, aspects of the Jewish people and the two roles of Jewish women. And the so what was Yaakov's first primary mission? Yaakov was to be involved in this world. And as I explained in last week's parsha, they said one of the meanings of when Yaakov was passing himself off as Esav, Yitzhak said The hands are that of Esav, but the voice is that of Yaakov. One of the explanations of that means that even a very holy person has to be enrolled in this world, the mundane day-to-day things, which can be very contempt people off the righteous path, and they have to be under the control of a Yaakov, of a Tzaddik. And this is where Rivka differed with Esav. Now, having said that, Leah, Rachel was the right wife for Yaakov, because his primary mission was to build a Jewish nation, build the tribes, deal with this world. In fact, he had it enlarged us in this week's Parashat with Lavan. And so who does Leah represent? She represents the ennoble world of thought, and the lower world, the world of speech, is that of Rachel. Now, so that's why when it says that says Leah's eyes are weak, it is explained that it's not Leah's eyes that are weak, it's the eyes of the world that are weak because they can't see Leah's true worth, that she represents the higher level. In fact, on one level, they talk about the Pentaliyid, the Jewish spirit in all of us, who came out during very challenging times of pogroms and massacres, and also in a good way, but that way too, and because that spark runs within all of us, and also in the 10 lost tribes that will only become revealed at the time of Mashiach. That spark has been dormant, but will be reignited at the right time, Zman of Mashiach. And if you look at it, Leah gave birth to 7 children, 6 boys and a girl. And who do they represent? That represents Mina, gives birth to 7 emotions without going into detailed meaning of that. And the generation that went in the desert wanted to work in that world, didn't want to get in the hurly-burly of the physical world. And that was one of the reasons given why the Meraglim, the spies, distorted. Now, if you look at the different, so Rachel represents, in a sense, the visible Jewish woman, one who's kept the family together through trials and tribulations, all the challenges of our exile. And if you look at the children, they were shepherds. They lived in a world, they lived apart from society. Being shepherds is a very lonely profession. They don't interact in the city, with the cities much. And they could always stay in the spiritual, the more hidden. Well, if you look at Rachel's 2 childs, Yosef learned how to deal in the world and stayed righteous even when he was governing Egypt. He was always a righteous tzaddik. And Benjamin was originally called Ben-Oni, son of my pain, and then he became Benjamin, son of the right. My right. What is that talking about? Switching the left side to the right side, the side of negative things. In other words, turning pain into and death, left side into the right, beauty and life. Now, what significance does it have for us? The main revelation of Hashem in the times of the temple was through speech, through the Nevi'im, the prophets. And where was that? It could only happen when there was a temple, the Beis Hamikdash, and could only happen at then. It couldn't be elsewhere, though there was an exception with the Yeheskel, but on the whole, it was in Israel. Now, Leah represents the higher spiritual world. Who was her natural husband, same individual, was Israel after he wrestled with the angel, which I'll discuss in next week's parasha, and high exalted spirit, exhibited spiritual levels that Yaakov acquired at times during his lifetime. And so what happened after the exile? Once, so that's why Rachel, in a sense, had to die, because her mission was in the world. Once the Jews got to Eretz Israel, it became a more spiritual mission, became that of Israel. Now, what is the impact? Rachel, those of us who left, Rachel's children, who do we represent? We represent the people, the sheep, so to speak, that had to go out into the world. And Rachel's challenge was to help maintain us and women, Jewish women in general, even in a difficult world. Who was Leah? She was the more hidden. And we see that even after the destructions of the temple, where have the greatest revelations in Torah been? They've been in Eretz Israel. One example of that is the Arizal, who taught many things that earlier great rabbis had never was not revealed to them, because Israel, the land of Israel, had that strength even in exile. There are many, many famous Rebbeim who came later, all from that so-called hidden world layers of influence. And there we see that, therefore, how does that apply us today? That hopefully we'll get both. Within the world, which we're already starting to see, we will conduct ourselves increasing on the level of Kedusha, which will help us merit the coming of Mashiach. And then at the time of Mashiach, the hidden world will be revealed to all of us, as Mana Mashiach. And may we soon merit to see the redemption. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.